Thank you for watching this brief video. This is a demonstration on how to properly set up the altar, or sometimes we call it dressing the altar. Even though this is being recorded at St. Athanasius, everything I'm going to show you applies equally to Sacred Heart. The first thing you want to do is before Mass, while you're preparing everything else, is you come up here in front of the altar and you make sure that this crucifix is in the middle of the altar, because sometimes before Mass you're going to find it one way or the other off to the side, depending upon how the person who touched it last left it. Sometimes you'll find it rotated. You want to square it, put it in the middle of the altar along this plexiglass strip here, and then square it with the tabernacle. And the purpose of this is not only, for the appearance of the crucifix, which is good enough reason, but also because you're going to be using this to line up the chalice here in just a second when we set that up. So everything should be in a line, or collinear as we say, okay? So that's your first thing. You do that before Mass begins. The next thing is when you bring over the chalice from the credence table, you bring this over here, and right away, you're going to notice that there's going to be a problem here, because you're going to unfold that white corporal cloth and set it here. But the problem is the book and the book stand are in the way. So what you want to do is lift up the book stand with the book, of course, and just shift it over, okay? One of the most common problems that we have is that the book is going to be too far over, and then the server sets up the chalice and everything else off to this one side. And we have to get away from that, okay? So pick up the book and move it over to the opposite side as much as you need to give yourself enough room. Bring the burse over here. Make sure the mouth, the open side, is facing the tabernacle. That way, the priest at the very end of Mass, when he goes to pick it up and he needs to, use it, he doesn't have to spin it around to figure out which way is the open end, okay? So you leave it over here along the edge of the altar, maybe about, arm's length away, so it's not too hard to reach at the very end of Mass. Then you just move the chalice over here a little bit, get out of your way. Open up the corporal, and you want to make sure that the cross, usually it's a red stitched cross. Sometimes it's going to be white, depending upon the manufacturer. But it's going to be typically a small red cross. That's the traditional way of doing it. You must set this up, the corporal, so that this edge here is about a finger thickness away from the edge of the altar. And what's been happening a lot of times is that the corporal has been far too much in, and it really only should be about a finger's thickness from the edge of the altar itself. Another thing very, very common is that this hasn't not been aligned with the crucifix. So that's kind of why we lined up the crucifix. So this cross here should be in a straight line with the crucifix. Very, very, very often, what ends up happening is the book will be here, and the server, instead of moving the book off to the side, he just sets it up like this, okay? And then you have, everything is off center and over to the one side. And no, you want to move the book out of the way of the corporal. Now, I should mention that there's another cloth going to be here, and this is under the book stand. You can ignore this cloth. The only reason this cloth is here is to protect this expensive large cloth from being chewed up by the book stand. So you can drape, the corporal, this cloth, over this smaller one if you need to. No problem there, okay? The main thing is this red cross, sometimes, like I said, it's white, is straight in line with that crucifix. Because if you get that wrong, then everything else is going to be off-centered. Okay, so again, about one finger's thickness in. You want to flatten this down to get all the air pockets out. And of course, you want to make sure that all the creases are facing down, facing down. You don't want them facing up, because if any particles of the Eucharist are dropped, you want them to get caught in the creases. Every once in a while, the people who clean and fold the corporals will fold them the wrong way. And that's a problem then. And we have to fight against that when we're folding and unfolding. But, 95% of the time they do the right thing. And the creases are ironed such that it unfolds very easily with the right cross up. Now, if you look here, this is the bottom side. And the bottom side looks like a cross too, but clearly the embroidery is meant to be viewed from this end, this side here. That's the neat side, okay? So don't confuse the embroidery from the bottom side. Here, about a finger's thickness, flatten it out. This cross is in line with that cross, okay? Now, if you notice, I did not move the book back yet. It's still out of the way, and that's fine. Because the next thing I'm going to do is pick up the chalice, and I'm going to put it in the center square right here. Right there, okay? Then I'm going to very carefully remove the veil from the chalice. Don't do it too quickly, otherwise you might snag something and pull all this off, and it'll fall right onto the altar. You take the veil, and you fold it along with the creases. Don't fight the creases. Fold with the creases, like that, and then I think like 95% of all of our veils have a decoration here. I think there's like one or two we have that don't have a decoration. But the decoration should be facing, when you fold it, facing up, and with the folded side facing in like this. That way, when the priest goes to pick this up later, he knows the orientation. So let me show you again how to fold this. Let me just get the chalice temporarily out of the way. So the way you fold the veil is you make it upside down, and then you fold with the creases. Remember, the creases are your friend. Don't fight the creases. Fold, fold again. Then you've got the decoration on top, the closed side facing the tabernacle. Then you put this on top of the burse. Now what has happened many times is that these are not placed on top of each other like squarely. They're placed on top of each other like this. And that's no good, because later on in the Mass, when the priest goes to pick these up, he wants to be able to pick them up with one motion. Okay, he doesn't want to handle each one separately. That doesn't look good. So you want them to be laid on top of each other, about like that, okay? So then you leave them over there. Then with the chalice, again, you should have the chalice over here. Okay, so a couple things with the chalice you want to make sure that you get right is, first of all, you take the pall off, and the pall is going to have usually some sort of a decoration. Sometimes the sacristans, they're not aware of that, and they'll have it, upside down or whatever. You want to make sure to turn it right, the right orientation. But for right now, you take the pall and you set it down over here, because if you look here, normally this should be like this. The chalice cross should be lined up and facing the red cross here, and then lined up, of course, with the big cross there, okay? And then, of course, you got this purificator that's there. You got the paten. You never want to have metal contact that just scratches things. And then the pall. So again, if the sacristan set it up correctly, what you'll need to do is simply take the veil off carefully, like that. Fold it, 1, 2, 3, and place. Okay? And like I said, if the sacristan set it up correctly, this cross here will be facing the cross on the corporal, and all three crosses, 1, 2, 3, will be in a line straight down the center of the middle aisle of the church, okay? And the pall is properly oriented. And of course, you don't want the purificator, because sometimes these slip around a little bit. You don't want it left like this either, okay? It just looks very sloppy. So if you need to turn it around, turn it around. That's okay, all right? Now, If you notice, this corporal is overlapping this small cloth that I mentioned earlier is here to protect the large altar cloth. That's fine. That's no problem at all. Okay? Now, what you do is you bring the book a little bit closer. Now that you're clear and you've set up everything properly, now you can move the book back. And you just lift it up. Don't drag it, of course. Otherwise, you'll pull all the main altar cloth. Lift it straight up and over and then down. Like I always say, whenever you move the missal, and which is the name for the book, and the book stand, you want to move it like it's a helicopter, up, down, straight. You don't want to drag it on the surface of the altar. And then you don't have to worry about exact positioning. The priest will position that as he needs to exactly, so don't worry about that. Okay? Then, later on, you want to set up the chalices and the ciborium. The ciborium is the big bowl, if you will, that holds the bread from the people. So you bring the chalices. Typically, there's going to be 2 chalices for the people, and you want to set them along the inner edge of the corporal. They have to be on the corporal. And you want to set them over here. Again, try not to touch them to keep from scratching, and the clanging sound is not good either. So kind of put them over there like that. And then you bring the ciborium and you put it on this corner right here. Now, this is kind of a big one, so you have to make a little more room. So just bring that over here like this, like that. Put that on the corner. You can't have it off of it, okay? Put it on the corner, take the lid off, and you can leave the lid right over here, kind of out of the way. So if you notice, the ciborium is on the corner of the corporal. Now, by the way, the orientation of the ciborium does not matter. It does have a cross here, you see that? But this does not matter, okay? So you put it on the corporal so that it is fully on it. You got the one chalice and the second chalice along the edge with it, not touching each other, all right? Then you bring this tray, which is going to have the little, we call them pyxes, that hold the hosts that are going to be taken to the homebaum. When you bring this over, you just put this over here, and because there's not really a whole lot of room, you don't want to put it entirely onto the corporal, but at least have it partially, because there's actually a spiritual connection between them that has to be, there. So again, not a lot of room here. It's getting kind of crowded. So you don't want to put it totally on here, but maybe about halfway or so, a third onto the corporal, and that's good enough, okay? And, by the way, if you're setting up something and you realize you need to move one of these vessels to bring in another item, that's fine. Move them around if you need to. Don't move things needlessly, of course. Now, something you want to be careful, of course, is when you are handling these vessels, if you need to work around anything, be very careful not to knock them over. Okay, so sometimes if you have to, move things out of your way. You be the judge of that, okay? And put it back. You don't want to be knocking anything over. Again, make sure this is lined up, and you're good to go. I'll also add that when you are giving the wine and the water or washing the fingers of the priest, typically we have one, sometimes 2 servers doing that. You don't want to stand so far away that the priest has to really reach over to you. In fact, you need to, like for example, if you are handling the water cruet or the wine cruet to the priest, many of the guys have been not extending their arms to the priest, and he's been having to reach out to you. So you don't want to do that. So you want to hold the cruet in your right hand, have the handle of the cruet, the glass handle, facing the priest, okay? And you hand it out to him like this. You hold the handle out to the priest, and you reach out when it's the proper time. Many of the guys are holding the cruet up to their chest, and the priest has to reach for that. So we don't want to do that, okay? When you're holding something in your right hand, your left hand should be on your breast, okay? And by the way, you never want to hand a cruet to the priest with the cap on it. Now I'm going to take some still photos from different angles to show you how everything is lined up before I move anything. And so that's the video, and I hope that you will take advantage of this video and watch it as often as you need to, because the dressing of the altar has been a bit of a challenge for a number of the servers. And just by going over this on your own as often as you need to at home, you should pick up the technique very, very quickly. There's not really a whole lot to it, but the point is, what we're doing here is for the Lord, and details do matter. So we're doing it for God's greater glory, because we want the liturgy to be as reverent and as beautiful and the flow as smoothly as possible. So thank you again for your attention. If you have any questions, of course, never hesitate to ask me. I'm very happy to help you, because at one time I was an altar server too, okay? So I know how, maybe nervous you might get, but again, the main thing is we're doing this for the Lord and for the people. And so as long as we're doing it with a good attitude, a good heart, and we are open to learning anything we need to learn and correct our mistakes, that's the main thing. Thanks again. God bless.